wearing silver bands to control her wolf. The Alpha King ripped them away. Here, in this quiet corner of the Northern Kingdom, the people lived under an unspoken fear, the fear of the wild that roamed beyond the hills, and the power that slept in certain bloodlines. Lyra walked slowly along the cobblestone path, her hands clasped tightly before her. Silver bands encircled her wrists, cold and heavy, engraved with runes that glimmered faintly in the moonlight. They were not merely jewelry, they were chains, a reminder of her family's insistence on control. These bands kept the wolf within her bound, a wolf that had always stirred in her bones, a voice that longed to howl at the night and taste the freedom of the wild. Every step felt like a small rebellion. Every breath she drew was filled with the longing she could not voice. The wolf inside her, restless and aware, sniffed the air, sensing danger and opportunity in equal measure. It stirred now, sensing something approaching, something unfamiliar yet commanding. From the north, a faint rumble echoed through the hills. The villagers paused, their conversations dying in mid-word. Horses whinnied nervously in their stables, and dogs let out low, uneasy growls. The elders muttered old warnings, stories of a man who came like a storm, a ruler with eyes like shadow and fire. They called him Kale, the Alpha King of the northern lands, a man who claimed obedience as if it were his own breath. Lyra's heart beat faster, though she had never seen this king in person. Her wolf stirred with excitement, her pulse matching its rhythmic growl. Something in the air called to her instincts, wild and magnetic. By the time the king's entourage reached the village, the night had deepened. Tall riders, cloaked in dark leather and fur, moved silently yet with undeniable authority. At the center rode Kale himself. His presence seemed to suck the warmth from the air. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to pierce through shadow. He dismounted effortlessly, his boots striking the stone with the weight of command. The villagers fell silent, kneeling instinctively, though their fear was mixed with awe. Kale's gaze found Lyra before she even realized he was looking for her. It was as if the bands on her wrists glimmered under his scrutiny, betraying the wild energy he sought. She felt exposed, naked in a way that had nothing to do with clothing, and yet she could not look away. His eyes held both challenge and understanding, as if he had been searching for her all along. "Step forward," he commanded, his voice calm but layered with authority. It carried a weight that made her knees tremble. Lyra hesitated, caught between instinct and obedience. Her wolf growled quietly, an ember of warning and anticipation. With slow, deliberate steps, she obeyed. Kale observed her closely, circling as though she were both prey and equal. "So this is the one," he said softly, almost to himself. "The wolf they tried to hide." Lyra bristled. I am nothing to you," she said, though her voice wavered. She wanted to retreat, to hide the restless power that simmered beneath her skin. Kale smiled faintly, a shadow of amusement crossing his face. "Ah, but the wolf within cannot lie. It speaks without fear, even when the heart trembles." His eyes lingered on the silver bands. "They've bound you well, but I sense the wolf still breathes beneath them, wild, untamed, waiting." The words were like a spark to dry tinder. Her wolf howled inside her, wanting freedom, wanting to leap, wanting to challenge him. Lyra's hands clenched at her sides. She could not move, not fully. The silver bands held her tight, yet the presence of Kale made her forget the restraint, if only for a moment. "You will come with me," Kale continued, his tone unyielding yet not cruel. "I do not ask, I do not negotiate. The wolf inside you has drawn my attention, and you will not remain hidden." Fear and defiance warred within her. "I do not belong to you," she said, her voice firmer now, though her pulse betrayed her words. "I will not." "You will," Kale interrupted, stepping closer. His presence was overwhelming, magnetic, undeniable. "Because the world is not kind to those who hide their power, and because you fascinate me." Lyra felt her breath catch. Fascinate. That word sent a shiver down her spine. She wanted to reject him, to retreat, yet she felt the pull of something stronger than fear, something almost dangerous in its intensity. Before she could respond, a distant cry echoed from the edge of the village, a warning from one of the elders. Cale turned his head sharply, eyes narrowing. The wolf in Lyra's mind surged, alert, protective. It sensed danger, something stirred in the forests beyond. Cale noticed the sudden tension, the way Lyra's body shifted, her ears and senses not just human but something more. He stepped closer, closer than propriety or reason should allow, and said softly, "Do not fight it, not yet. Let the wolf guide you, for it knows truths that you do not." Lyra swallowed hard, torn between instinct and caution. Her wolf whined, urging her to flee to test the limits of the silver bands, and for the first time she considered it. To run, to escape, to let the wild take her entirely. Yet something in Cale's eyes, the same eyes that seemed to see every hidden part of her, made her hesitate. The air was electric. The villagers shrank back, sensing the tension between them. Even the moon seemed to pause, watching, reflecting in the silver bands around Lyra's wrists. They glimmered faintly, as if responding to some unseen force. Cale stepped even closer. "You are stronger than they realize," he whispered. "Stronger than even you know. The wolf does not belong to them. It belongs to no one except perhaps to the one who can match it." Lyra's wolf growled, low and warning, yet not entirely fearful. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. Something deep within her, a mix of longing and defiance, stirred, reaching toward him even as her mind screamed caution. Before she could reply, Cale extended his hand, a silent challenge, a bridge between fear and curiosity. Lyra hesitated. Could she trust him? Could she even trust herself? The wolf tugged at her soul, urging her to leap, to choose, to defy the chains once and for all. The village fell silent around them. Every eye was on the pair, yet none could intervene. The tension was palpable, thick like fog, pressing in from all sides. The silver bands tightened slightly, as if sensing the importance of this moment, this meeting of will, wildness, and destiny. And then, the first sound of something larger stirred in the distance, a low, guttural growl, not entirely of this world. It came from the forest beyond the village, echoing through the hills, a reminder that danger and magic were never far from those who carried power. Lyra's wolf howled in response, a sound of warning, defiance, and recognition. Cale's eyes flicked toward the noise, then back to her. A shadow of a smile touched his lips and his hand did not waver. "Come with me," he said again, softer this time, not a command but a promise. "Or do not, but know this. The world beyond these hills will not wait, and neither will the wolf inside you." Lyra's pulse raced. The chains on her wrists felt heavier than ever, yet something in the air, something in Cale's gaze, called to her. Her heart beat for the first time, not with fear, but with the thrill of possibility. Her wolf stirred violently now, pressing against the confines of the silver bands. The air shimmered faintly around her, reflecting the tension between restraint and freedom. She could not run, not fully. She could not stay, not fully. Cale's presence was a challenge, a question, a spark that lit the tinder of her restless soul. The moon cast a silver glow over them both, as if marking the beginning of something that neither time nor chains could hold. Then, a sudden roar split the night, a deep, ancient sound echoing from the forests. It was not human, not animal, yet filled with power that resonated with Lyra's own wolf. She staggered, heart pounding as the bands glimmered, vibrating against her skin. Cale's eyes darkened, a mix of warning and anticipation. "It begins," he murmured, almost to himself. "And there is no turning back." Lyra's wolf surged, howling at the moon, at the danger, at the man who had looked into her soul and refused to blink. Her hands shook, her body taut with energy, yet she did not flee. She could not. Something far greater than fear had taken hold. And in that frozen moment under the silver light, the night held its breath. The wolf within her, wild and untamed, had awakened. And the Alpha King, standing just a step away, had marked the beginning of a story that neither chains nor time could contain. The road to the northern castle stretched through forests that whispered ancient secrets. Shadows danced beneath the silver moonlight, and the air smelled of pine, wet earth, and the faint tang of magic. Lyra rode beside Cale, though she did not fully trust him, nor did she entirely resist the strange pull of his presence. Her wolf, once restless, now thrummed beneath her skin like a heartbeat she could neither ignore nor control. The silver bands on her wrists glimmered faintly, reflecting the moonlight, but they no longer confined her spirit completely. They were reminders of the world she had come from, of chains, control, and fear. But in Cale's presence, they seemed almost unnecessary. He had a way of seeing the wolf inside her, understanding its hunger without judgment, without cruelty. "Do not be afraid of it," Cale said, his voice calm and commanding as always. "The wolf is not your enemy. It is part of you, and it will guide you if you allow it." Lyra's gaze snapped to him, wary and defensive. "And what if it wants to tear things apart?" she asked. Her voice trembled slightly, though she tried to mask it with defiance. "What if it cannot be controlled?" Cale's dark eyes held hers, unwavering. "Then it will be stronger than anyone who tries to stop it. But strength alone does not make a monster. Choice does." "You have choice." Lyra's wolf stirred, pressing against her chest, responding to his words with a mixture of curiosity and defiance. It had lived in shadows for too long, trapped by silver, rules, and fear. Now it stirred, testing the world outside. The castle loomed ahead, tall and formidable, with walls of black stone etched with symbols that glimmered faintly in the moonlight. Towers reached skyward like the claws of some ancient beast, and the gates were carved with images of wolves, their eyes seemingly alive, watching all who approached. As Cale guided her through the massive gates, Lyra's heart raced. The interior was vast, silent except for the echo of their steps. Tapestries hung along the walls, depicting battles, hunts, and rulers of old, their eyes cold and commanding. Even the air inside the castle seemed heavy with history, with magic, with unspoken authority. "You will stay here," Cale said as he led her into a chamber high above the ground, its windows opening to the dark forest beyond. "Not as a prisoner, but as someone who must learn control. Control of what you are, and control of what the world will demand of you." Lyra glanced around, wary. "And if I refuse?" she asked, her voice quieter now, a whisper that held both challenge and fear. Cale's expression softened slightly, though his eyes remained sharp. "Then you will learn the hard way. The wolf cannot be ignored, it cannot be hidden. And the world beyond these walls is not kind to those who refuse their nature." Her wolf growled low in her chest, a warning and a question. It wanted freedom, it wanted to run, it wanted to test Cale's authority. Lyra's hands clenched, feeling the tension rise between the man before her and the wild within her. She did not yet know if Cale would be her ally, her master, or something far more complicated. Over the next days, Cale observed her, testing her patience, her strength, and the wolf's instinct. He did not use violence, nor did he command with cruelty. Instead, he created situations where Lyra's instincts would surface, then watched with quiet intensity, as if learning from her as much as she learned from him. One afternoon, he led her into the castle gardens, a place of twisted trees, moonlit fountains, and statues of wolves frozen in motion. The scent of wildflowers and damp stone filled the air. Cale's gaze never left her, sharp and knowing. "Walk with me," he said. "Do not run, do not resist, simply move." Lyra obeyed reluctantly, though her wolf pressed against her mind, urging her to leap, to test, to challenge him. Cale noticed the tension in her stride, the flicker of wildness in her eyes. "You have power," he said quietly, "power that frightens others. But it frightens you most of all, does it not?" She did not answer at once. Her wolf howled softly inside her, a whisper of defiance, of longing, of fear. I have never been allowed to use it," she admitted finally. They said it would destroy me, destroy others, that it is dangerous. Kale nodded slowly, understanding in his gaze. Dangerous, yes, but not evil, and it is not meant to be hidden. Strength is never safe when denied. You must embrace it, or it will control you instead. Lyra's chest tightened, the weight of his words settling deep inside her. She wanted to believe him, to trust him, yet fear still coiled around her like a snake. What if he only wanted to control her, like the silver bands had tried to do? What if he was another cage in disguise? That night, she could not sleep. The wolf stirred restlessly, sensing both Kale's presence and the danger that lingered outside the castle walls. Shadows moved in the corridors, whispers of secrets and power brushing against her senses. She paced the chamber, restless, listening to the wind as it whispered through the towers. A soft knock came at the door. She froze. "Enter," she called, her voice wary. Kale stepped in, silent as a shadow. "I did not come to command," he said, his voice low, calm, and unnervingly intimate. "I came to warn." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Warn me of what?" He stepped closer, and the moonlight caught the edges of his face, casting half in shadow, half in silver. "Enemies," he said. "There are those who would use your power to destroy me, to destroy this land. And there are those who would see you chained forever to keep what they fear contained." Her wolf bristled, sensing threat in the air, but also something more. An undeniable link between Kale and her own power, something that made her pulse race. "Why do you care?" she asked. Kale's eyes softened just a fraction. "Because you are not meant to be a pawn, because the wolf in you is rare, and because he paused, searching for words he did not give fully. "I will not see you used or broken." Lyra's heart pounded. His words were not commands nor threats. They were acknowledgement, recognition, and something far more confusing, a strange comfort, as though he understood the wildness she had always feared in herself. The next day, Kale guided her to the training halls. The space was vast, with stone floors and high ceilings, and in the center lay targets, weights, and objects that tested balance, strength, and focus. "You will learn to listen to the wolf," he said. "Not to fight it, not to fear it, but to know it, to understand it, to let it guide you." Lyra took a deep breath, her wolf quivering in anticipation. She moved to the first target, her hands steady despite the trembling in her heart. Kale watched silent, his presence a constant pressure that was not oppressive, yet impossible to ignore. Hours passed. Sweat dripped, muscles ached, yet her wolf felt alive in ways it never had under the silver bands. She moved faster, sharper, more aware. Kale's eyes never left her, tracking every motion, every flicker of instinct, every hesitation and triumph. By evening, her strength had grown, yet so had her awareness of Kale's own intensity. He did not praise her, nor did he scold. He simply observed, a shadow of judgment and admiration interwoven. When the training ended, Lyra stumbled to the garden once more, her body aching, her mind a whirl of excitement, fear, and something that bordered on fascination. The moon reflected in the fountain's water, silver ripples dancing like the wolf inside her. Kale appeared silently beside her, as though he had always been there. "You have done well," he said softly, "but there is more, always more. The world is larger and the dangers are deeper than you know." Lyra's wolf bristled, sensing truth in his words. "And what if I am not ready?" she whispered. Kale's hand hovered near hers, not touching, yet almost closing the distance. "Then the world will test you anyway," he said. "And perhaps it will break those who are not ready. But you," he paused, eyes intense, unwavering, "you might survive. And more than that, you might rise." Lyra's chest tightened, her heart hammering. The wolf inside her stirred, a fierce, restless energy she could neither deny nor fully understand. Something in Kale's presence pulled at her, as dangerous as it was magnetic. Suddenly, a shrill scream echoed from the castle gates. Shadows twisted in the distance, moving too quickly, too deliberately. Kale's eyes darkened, sharp and commanding. "Stay here," he said, voice low, warning and yet protective. "Do not run, do not hide. Let the wolf guide you as I have said, but be ready. Lyra's pulse surged. Her wolf howled, urgent, aware, alive. Something ancient and dangerous stirred beyond the walls, drawn to her power. She felt the tension coil in the air like a living thing. Kale moved toward the threat, silent and commanding, his presence a storm of strength and determination. Lyra felt a surge of both fear and exhilaration. For the first time, she realized that freedom and danger were inseparable, and that Kale was both the storm and the anchor she had not yet learned to trust. The night held its breath. The wolf inside her roared, the silver bands glinting faintly, the forest beyond the castle trembling in anticipation. And Lyra understood with a deep, shivering certainty that nothing would ever be the same. The Alpha King had claimed her attention, and the wolf inside her had answered. The forest beyond the northern castle was alive with shadows and whispers. Trees towered like guardians of forgotten secrets, their branches interlaced to form tunnels of darkness, broken only by pale shafts of moonlight. Lyra moved through them silently, her senses sharp, every sound amplified by the wolf within her. The silver bands on her wrists had been removed, ripped away by Kale's command, freeing her spirit. And yet, freedom was heavier than she had imagined. Her heart pounded with excitement and fear. The wolf inside her stretched, testing the edges of her mind and body, stretching its claws against the world that had tried to contain it. She could smell everything: the damp earth, the moss on the trees, distant prey, and the faint, metallic tang of magic in the air. Every breath was filled with life and power, every heartbeat echoed with possibility. She paused near a stream, the water glimmering under the moonlight. Her reflection wavered on its surface, and she saw not just a girl but the wolf within her, eyes bright, ears alert, body coiled with strength and instinct. For the first time she felt whole yet terrified. Whole because the chains were gone. Terrified because the world she had stepped into was far larger, darker, and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. Footsteps approached, soft, deliberate, confident. Lyra's ears twitched, and the wolf inside her stiffened. She turned, ready to strike, ready to flee, but Kale emerged from the shadows, his presence calm yet commanding. He moved silently, a predator in his own right, yet not threatening unless provoked. "You should not wander alone," he said, his voice low, almost a growl, yet edged with care. "I am not alone," Lyra replied, her voice steady though her pulse raced. "The wolf is with me. I do not need protection." Kale's dark eyes studied her, measuring the truth in her words. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "but even the strongest wolves can be hunted. Even the wildest spirits can be cornered, and there are those who would see you broken before you have learned to use your strength." Lyra's wolf growled, a low vibration in her chest. The forest responded, shadows seeming to shiver and move, as though acknowledging the presence of the awakened magic. She did not speak, did not move. She simply watched him, aware that Kale's presence was both a warning and a strange anchor. "You are learning," he continued, taking a cautious step closer. "Faster than most, yet strength without control is dangerous." Lyra nodded slowly, feeling the tension between them deepen. She did not fully trust him, nor did she fully resist him. Kale's gaze, intense and unflinching, stirred a storm inside her, a mixture of fear, fascination, and something she did not yet understand. Suddenly, a rustle came from the underbrush, sharp and deliberate. Lyra froze, senses screaming. The wolf inside her surged forward, muscles coiling, teeth bared in instinctive readiness. Kale's hand lifted slightly, not touching her but guiding her, warning her silently. From the shadows emerged figures cloaked in darkness, their intentions clear in their swift, careful movements. They were hunters, drawn by the power of her wolf, seeking to capture her, to use her magic for their own ends. Lyra's heart raced. The wolf inside her roared, pressing against her mind, ready to strike. She did not hesitate. With a swift motion she leapt forward, moving with speed and precision that surprised even her. The first attacker fell to the ground, caught off guard by her sudden, untamed strength. Kale moved beside her, silent, lethal, and precise. He did not take control, nor did he dominate. He fought beside her, matching her movements, covering her flank, guiding her subtly without ever restraining her. They moved together like storm and wind, a force neither fully human nor fully animal, yet perfectly synchronized. By the time the attackers realized they were outmatched, Lyra had already felt the thrill of power, the wolf's hunger tempered by her mind, controlled yet free. She struck with precision, using her instincts without losing herself to them, her movements fluid and powerful. Kale's eyes held hers briefly, a silent acknowledgement of what they had just achieved together. When the last attacker fled into the shadows, Lyra's chest heaved. The forest was silent once more, yet the tension lingered, thick and palpable. She turned to Kale, her wolf settling, muscles taut but ready, eyes bright with exhilaration. "You are learning quickly," Kale said, his voice calm but edged with pride. "But this was only a test. There will be more, stronger, smarter, deadlier." Lyra's gaze dropped. "I did not know that I could fight like that." Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear but from the surge of power she had felt. "It feels alive. Dangerous, yes, but alive." Kale stepped closer, his dark eyes unwavering. "Power is alive," he said softly. "It does not belong to those who hide it. It belongs to those who understand it, who respect it, who use it wisely. You are one of the rare few who can wield it without losing themselves." The wolf inside her pressed against her heart, sensing the truth in his words. Yet there was something more, a connection she could not name, a bond forged not by chains or commands, but by recognition and understanding. Over the following days, Kale continued to teach her, guiding her through exercises that tested both her physical strength and her inner control. They moved through forests, climbed jagged cliffs, and navigated ancient ruins where magic lingered like a living thing. Each challenge pushed her further, stretching her limits, yet also revealing depths she had never known. Kale never forced her, never demanded obedience through fear. Instead, he created situations where she had to make choices, to listen to the wolf, to trust herself, and to trust him in subtle, unspoken ways. Every shared glance, every silent acknowledgement deepened the bond between them. One evening, they stood atop a cliff overlooking the northern valley, the moon casting silver light across the rolling hills below. The wind whipped through Lyra's hair, the wolf inside her stretching, coiling, reveling in freedom. She felt alive, powerful, yet also vulnerable in a way she had never experienced. Kale stood beside her, his presence steady, a shadowed strength she could feel but not touch. "Do you understand now?" he asked, voice low and steady. "The wolf does not make you weak. It makes you whole, but it must be respected, tempered, guided, otherwise it will consume you." Lyra nodded slowly, feeling the truth of his words settle deep in her chest. "I understand," she whispered, "but it is difficult. I am not used to this freedom, to this power." Kale's gaze softened, and for a moment the fierce Alpha King was replaced by someone who seemed to understand fear, longing, and the weight of responsibility. "I know," he said. "Freedom is frightening, but it is also beautiful. And you have only begun to see what you are capable of." Their eyes met, and in that moment the wolf inside Lyra stirred again, sensing not danger but connection. A deep, primal bond, unspoken yet undeniable, had begun to form between them. It was not possession nor dominance. It was recognition, mutual respect, and a fragile trust that had yet to be tested. But the night was far from over. From the distant forest came a howl, ancient and resonant, carrying with it a weight that made Lyra's fur stand on end. It was not the howl of any ordinary wolf. This was older, darker, filled with intent, drawn to the magic she now wielded freely. Kale stiffened beside her, eyes narrowing as he scanned the horizon. "It has begun," he murmured. "The ancient forces have sensed your power. They will come and they will test you in ways we cannot yet predict." Lyra's chest tightened. Her wolf roared in response, fierce and untamed, yet guided by the understanding she had gained. She was no longer the girl bound by silver bands. She was the wolf, tempered by choice, by guidance, by instinct, and by a growing trust in the Alpha King who had freed her. Kale's hand brushed against hers, not in possession but in solidarity, a silent promise that they would face what came together. Lyra felt a spark, an unspoken bond that went beyond words, beyond fear, beyond control. As the moon rose high, casting silver light over the valley and the twisted trees, Lyra and Kale stood together, ready to face the threat that approached. The wolf inside her howled, a sound of defiance, of power, and of awakening. And Kale, the Alpha King, met her gaze with unflinching resolve. The night held its breath. The forest trembled. The wolf had awakened, and the forces drawn to her were stirring, ancient and hungry. And in that moment, Lyra realized that her journey had only just begun. The forest shivered under the silver light of the full moon, the air thick with magic and danger. Shadows twisted unnaturally, stretching like living things, and the wind carried whispers that chilled the bone. Lyra moved through the trees with her wolf fully awake, senses heightened, every muscle coiled and ready. She could feel the ancient forces drawing nearer, their power dark and relentless, seeking her magic, her freedom. Kale moved beside her, silent and precise, his presence both protective and commanding. Though he did not touch her, she felt his strength like a shield against the encroaching darkness. Together, they were a storm waiting to break, human and wolf, instinct and intelligence, power and control. The first shadows leapt from the darkness, creatures of smoke and bone, spectral and fierce, eyes glowing like molten fire. They moved swiftly, circling, testing, striking with intent. Lyra's wolf roared, muscles coiling, and she met them head-on, leaping, dodging, striking with speed that startled even her. Kale was a shadow beside her, striking with precision, guiding her subtly without commanding. Every movement was a test, every strike a dance of power and instinct. Lyra realized she had never felt so alive. The wolf inside her was no longer a threat. It was a part of her, fierce, loyal, and unstoppable. She had learned to listen, to guide, to control without losing herself. And beside her, Kale was more than a king. He was a partner, a force that understood, respected, and challenged her in ways no one ever had. The battle raged through the night, the forest alive with magic and fury. Lyra's claws flashed like silver, her teeth bared in instinctive defense, but her mind remained clear, focused. She could feel the energy of the creatures, their intent to overpower and consume. She responded not with fear but with determination, weaving through the attacks, striking back, guiding Kale where needed. Hours seemed to pass in moments. The air was thick with power, sweat, and the scent of the wild. Lyra's body ached but her spirit soared. The wolf inside her was no longer restless. It was honed, trained, sharpened by trials, by trust, by the challenge of survival. And Kale's presence, constant and unwavering, was the anchor that allowed her to move freely, fearlessly. Then from the shadows, a larger figure emerged, a creature older than the night itself, its body twisting like smoke, eyes like twin moons burning with fury. Lyra's wolf growled, muscles coiling, heart pounding with recognition. This was the source of the dark magic, the ancient force drawn to her awakening. Its roar echoed through the forest, shaking leaves from the trees, bending the air with its intensity. Kale stepped forward, sword in hand, though he did not advance recklessly. "It seeks to test you," he said, his voice steady but carrying a weight of warning. "Not just your strength, but your heart." Lyra's chest tightened. Her wolf bristled, fierce and alert, ready to fight, ready to leap. "I am ready," she whispered, though uncertainty trembled beneath her resolve. The creature struck, a swirl of shadows and energy, and Lyra met it head-on, moving as one with her wolf. She struck with precision, instincts and intellect perfectly balanced. Kale moved beside her, each of their motions synchronized, a dance of power, trust, and survival. Blow after blow, Lyra felt the strain, yet also the exhilaration. Every strike was a choice, every movement a declaration. She would not be controlled, she would not be chained, and she would not be broken. The wolf inside her surged with pride, with defiance, with love for the freedom she now possessed. Kale's eyes never left her. Every glance carried a silent affirmation, a recognition of her strength, her courage, her spirit. He did not dominate her, he did not claim her. He guided, he supported, he stood beside her. And in that companionship, in that trust forged in fire and moonlight, Lyra found a courage deeper than any she had known. Finally, with a coordinated surge, Lyra and Kale struck together. The creature shrieked, a sound of rage and despair, before dissolving into shadows that scattered like smoke in the wind. The forest fell silent, the only sound the soft rustle of leaves and Lyra's rapid breathing. She fell to her knees, exhausted, yet victorious. Her wolf licked her thoughts gently, calming her, settling in a rhythm she had learned to command. She looked at Kale, who stood a step away, his chest heaving, eyes dark with intensity and something else, pride, awe, and unspoken care. "You have done more than survive," he said quietly. "You have embraced what you are, and in doing so, you have grown stronger than even I imagined." Lyra rose slowly, chest heaving, her wolf inside her calm but alert. She had faced death, ancient power, and darkness, and she had emerged not broken, not tamed, but whole. Her eyes met Kale's, and she saw in them a reflection of her own growth. A man who had learned not to dominate, not to command, but to respect, to trust, and to fight alongside someone he did not control. For a long moment, they simply stood there, under the moonlight, breathing, watching, understanding without words. The forest, once filled with danger, now felt like a witness to something rare, a bond forged not in fear or possession, but in trust, strength, and mutual recognition. "You are different now," Kale said finally, voice low, almost reverent. "The wolf within you is free, yet guided. You are no longer a pawn of fear nor of chains. You are whole." Lyra felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mix of relief, pride, and something deeper she could not name. "I have learned," she said softly, "that freedom is not just being untamed. It is knowing who you are and standing beside those who respect it." Kale's gaze softened. "And what you have learned is rare, Lyra. Few ever truly embrace the power within them without losing themselves. You have done what others could not, and you have trusted me." She looked at him, and in that moment words were unnecessary. Their bond, forged through trials, danger, and shared understanding, needed no declaration. It was silent, deep, undeniable. As dawn approached, the moon waned, casting a pale glow over the valley. The forest, once trembling with danger, now felt calm, as if the very land recognized the strength and balance Lyra and Kale had achieved. The ancient forces were gone, scattered back into shadow, yet their presence lingered like a memory, a reminder that power and freedom were eternal challenges. Kale stepped closer, and this time his hand brushed hers, not in command, not in possession, but in acknowledgement, in partnership. Lyra felt the spark, not of fear, but of connection, something fragile yet unbreakable. "We are stronger together," he said simply. "Not because I lead, not because you follow, but because we fight as one, because we understand, because we respect." Lyra nodded, feeling the wolf inside her settle completely. She was no longer a prisoner of silver bands, no longer a girl constrained by fear. She was the wolf, she was Lyra, and she was free. And for the first time she felt the full measure of her strength, not just physical but emotional, spiritual, and unshakable. The wind carried the scent of pine and distant snow, the forest alive with life, and the sky turned from silver to pale gold as dawn approached. Lyra and Kale stood together, watching the first light touch the northern valley. Their journey was far from over. The world beyond would always bring danger, challenge, and test their bond. But for now, in this moment, they had achieved something rare: balance, understanding, and the freedom to choose. Lyra's wolf pressed against her heart, a gentle vibration of approval and trust. Kale's hand lingered near hers, a silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. The castle in the distance seemed smaller now, its walls no longer barriers but symbols of the challenges they had overcome. And beneath the morning sky, Lyra realized that the silver bands, once a symbol of constraint, were now nothing more than memory. She had been freed not just from them, but from fear, from doubt, from the chains that bound her spirit. Kale finally spoke again, his voice low, steady, and full of quiet awe. "You have changed everything. Not just for yourself, but for me, for this land, for the wolf within you." Lyra's lips curved into a small, confident smile. "Then we face the future together," she said. "Not chained, not controlled, but as we choose." The wind carried their words into the valley, and the morning light bathed them in gold. The wolf inside Lyra gave one final, triumphant howl, a sound of freedom, of power, of life embraced fully. And Kale, the Alpha King, stood beside her, unwavering, strong, and willing to walk whatever path they chose together. The forest, the valley, and the mountains beyond seemed to breathe with them, alive with possibility. The darkness had tested them, the wolf had awakened, and the bond between Lyra and Kale had been forged in fire, moonlight, and courage. And as the first birds of morning rose into the sky, Lyra and Kale stepped forward, not as master and prisoner, not as ruler and subject, but as equals, as partners, as a force that could not be broken. The story of the wolf and the Alpha King had reached its dawn, and yet its legend had only just begun.